Confidential. Hasbro internal investigation report regarding incident. Date of incident, September 25th, 2010. Time of incident, 12 p.m. Location of incident, Beverly Center Mall, 8500 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90048. Meet the My Little Pony characters event. Persons involved, Catherine Wilson, missing. Person writing the report, Donna Nixon, Hasbro HR, legal. Summary of incident. On Saturday, September 25th, 2010, at the Beverly Center in Los Angeles, California, Hasbro Marketing had prepared for a meet and greet of My Little Pony characters in promotion for their October 10th, 2010 premiere. 6 actors and actresses were hired to be in costume for the event. The meet and greet was supposed to last from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, followed by another event the next day. After the event, all future events have been cancelled. 5 of the 6 main characters exited the dressing room and proceeded to the stage, except for Fluttershy, who was to be played by Catherine Wilson. She was the last to exit the dressing room. Problems arose from the start that included an unusual odor and the assault of several guests. 911 was called at some point after the actress was escorted from the stage. She was hospitalized shortly thereafter. See Daryl Castle's attached witness report. Witness description of the incident. On Saturday, September 25th, 2010, I, Daryl Castle, was tasked with escorting the characters out from their dressing room onto the stage at Beverly Center Mall. Miss Catherine Wilson, actress hired to play Fluttershy, was the last to arrive on stage. Already it was apparent that something was wrong. Miss Wilson appeared to be intoxicated. She was walking in an abnormal way and unable to travel in a straight line. When asked if she was okay, she merely nodded and proceeded forward. I also noted that her costume was filthy. Dark stains were all over the Fluttershy costume with her eyes blocked out. There was a strange smell emanating from inside it. At first it smelled like bile, and when her legs briefly collapsed under her, they seemed squishy. Once again I asked Miss Wilson if she was able to continue. Once again, she nodded, insisting that she would be able to perform her duties. I let her go on stage and called wardrobe for the spare Fluttershy costume we had in storage for emergencies to be brought out for her to change into after the first set. When they entered the stage set up for the meet and greet, all the characters went to their preset locations except for Miss Wilson, Fluttershy, who continued to act in a strange way. She refused to stay in her area and kept moving around to the other character locations. More noticeably was how she interacted to the kids. Most of the children in attendance wanted nothing to do with the Fluttershy character. They constantly shied away from Miss Wilson when she approached them. Some of the younger ones began to cry hysterically when she got close to them. None of the other characters had this problem, as there were reasonably long lines for the other 5. When a few children got up the nerve to actually approach Fluttershy and pose for a picture, Miss Wilson started to act even stranger. She would grab them and hold them in a possessive manner. She would then begin to act as if she were going to devour said child, putting the costume's mouth wide enough for her to potentially swallow said child, at which point the child would begin crying and I would have to drag the child away from her back to their parents. At this time, I need to point out that the smell from the Fluttershy costume had gotten even stronger and more noticeable. It now wasn't so much bile as it was the smell of rotting meat. It was quite strong, with guests visibly retching whenever she got close enough. In one incident, Fluttershy was clearly upset when a little girl refused to get close to her, and she avoided Fluttershy and walked back to her parents. Fluttershy proceeded to follow her out from the stage and onto the floor, still with that strange walk, and visibly tried to force the girl back to the stage. It was apparent the girl was frightened by Miss Wilson's actions. It was then I approached the actress. I placed my hand on her shoulder and attempted to direct her back onto the stage. When I did so, I noticed that the costume was squishy. It was as if there wasn't anything solid within the costume. Whatever it was that Miss Wilson put into the Fluttershy costume, it leaked through the fabric onto my hand as I continued to direct her to the stage. It was black, cold, and stung on contact. At this point, I radioed security and had them escort the other actors to the dressing room and to call 911 and a hazmat team to deal with the potentially dangerous substance that leaked from the costume. The longer I stayed with Miss Wilson, I felt uneasy. It was as if a visceral, pure rage began to emanate from the costume. She was beginning to terrify me. Even so, I stayed with her, keeping her separate from the other actors until the last one of them had entered the dressing room. When the last actor entered the dressing room, I asked one of the security guards, Roger Halstead, to keep an eye on Miss Wilson while I checked on the other actors. Upon entering the dressing room, I noticed two other Beverly Center Mall maintenance workers trying to enter the door to the mop room. Initially, I paid them no mind and asked the actors if they noticed anything bizarre about Miss Wilson before they were to change into their costumes. They said Miss Wilson was already in costume when they entered. It was at this point the mall manager entered the dressing room to unlock the mop room. When he did, and the door opened, he screamed, "Jesus," in alarm, which caught my attention. I ran to the mop room, and inside was Miss Wilson, naked and bleeding from her right hand, 4 of her fingernails missing from scratching her hand across the wall. In her own blood, she had written as follows: "There are too many Fluttershies. They won't let me breathe. There are too many Fluttershies. They won't let me think. The Fluttershies hate me. The Fluttershies hate me. The Fluttershies are laughing at me." After that, the words became incomprehensible to read. It was then we all heard the scream coming from the hallway. It was Halstead. The scream was followed by the screams of several of the actors who had run to the door to see what was going on and were now in a full retreat from the doorway. I quickly made my way to the hall where I gagged at both what I saw and smelled. Lying in the hall was the lower half of Halstead. It was almost as if his upper torso had been melted away. Next to him lay the stained and discarded Fluttershy costume. The putrid smell of rot and death quickly enveloped the hall, and I ordered an evacuation. Once outside, we met the paramedics who treated me for minor burns to my hand where the black goo had touched it. Miss Wilson, who was babbling incoherently, was taken to the hospital for treatment and observation. Continuation of main report. We agree with Mr. Castle's initial assumption that Miss Catherine Wilson had taken some illegal drug and was intoxicated. We believe that it was some type of airborne psychotropic drug that ultimately affected her the most severely, and everyone else in the mall to a much lesser degree, causing hallucinations. We believe that Miss Wilson had arrived early and released said drug while in the mop closet and then changed into her costume. By the time the others arrived on the scene, It was a toxin that permeated the air within the mall. Due to Miss Wilson's longer exposure to it, her reaction was much more severe. How she wound up in the closet is questionable. We can assume that perhaps the others had simply not noticed her locking herself in. It was were beginning to suffer the effects of the drug. This would explain the lack of the previously mentioned body of security guard Roger Halstead and lack of any black fluid at the scene. The suit, which did smell awful, was incinerated at the close of the initial investigation. Miss Catherine Wilson, who was committed at Rothman Memorial Hospital's psychiatric wing, disappeared 2 weeks after the fact. Federal and local authorities have been informed, and she appears on the no-fly list as we speak. We do not expect to hear from her again. However, we have told security to keep their eyes open for her. Addendum. It is unknown at this time who is responsible for inflicting all of those yellow balloons and with pink butterflies and rabbit designs in the room of Miss Wilson, nor is it clear who left the Fluttershy doll with its eyes blacked out in her room as well. We will have to conduct an internal investigation into whoever might be responsible for such actions and speak with our manufacturers in China. These dolls aren't supposed to be on the market yet, and the fact that one of them showed up in a mental hospital is clearly a violation of our marketing and product policies. When found, the employee or employees should be terminated immediately to prevent further violations. And that was Flutterschmooze, a My Little Pony creepypasta by Opium4TMassS. Wow, two My Little Pony creepypastas back to back. How about that? I review story now. I've got to say, I like this story a lot more than The Cough. Not only because it's creepy, but because it feels realistic. I could definitely see some nutoid defacing a Fluttershy costume and, you know, trying to force children to take pictures with her. I can definitely see that. I could also definitely see her, you know, being, you know, this kind of drug addict who went nuts and thinks a character is laughing at them. I mean, you never know what mental conditions people have, so, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I will say that the witness reports, the investigation from Hasbro HR, those are also very realistic. The people in the story act accordingly, which is a lot more than I can say for The Cough. Seriously, it's just a cough. There are some grammar mistakes and a little bit of cliches here and there, but I can let them slide. Because this story, I honestly think this story's pretty good. If I had to nitpick, though, it would be, how did Catherine Wilson go missing? Don't hospitals have, you know, tighter security than that? I mean, you know, I don't work at a hospital, so I wouldn't know. The HR woman, I forgot her name right now. I might go, back to the reading later to remember, complaining about, you know, the balloons on the Fluttershy plush left up to the Miss Wilson's room. I highly doubt Hasbro would be that corrupt as to, you know, fire someone over that. But, you know, to be fair, the dolls weren't supposed to be released to the public yet, I think. And, you know, I don't work for Hasbro, so I wouldn't know. But, you know, otherwise, I like this story. I like it a lot. My final rating of it would have to be 9 out of 10. There are some cliches, there are some grammatical errors, there are some nitpicks I have with the story, but I can let them slide because this is good. This is how you do a My Little Pony creepypasta. Okay, well, not strictly how, that would be ridiculous. But, this story is good. It's good. By the way, I have a Telegram now. The link will be in the description below. As always, like, share, leave a comment. Stay awesome, stay spooky. See you next time.